Oklahoma has had some really good wide receivers over the last few years. Guys like D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and most recently Marvin Mims have all become stars for the Sooners program, and most of them came in as highly ranked players. The 2019 wide receiver class for Oklahoma was absolutely elite. They had two 5-star recruits by the name of Jaden Hazelwood and Theo Weiss, and then another guy who at one point was a 5-star, but eventually was lowered down. This guy is the subject of today's video. He went from someone with all the potential in the world to a player who consistently got in trouble and eventually was kicked off the team. It's unfortunate, but he did throw his football career away, and in today's video, we're going to talk about who he is, his time at Oklahoma, why he got in trouble, and what I think is going to happen next for him. But right before we get into it, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and I know we can do better than that. Plus, we're on the road to 100K, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for the algorithm, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now, let's get started. So you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is none other than Oklahoma wide receiver Trejan Bridges. But in order to understand what went wrong for Bridges, we need to go back in time and see where he came from. Trejan Bridges was born and raised in the state of Texas, and both his dad and his best friend's dad played semi-pro football together, and they had sons that were near the same age, and those two bonded from the very beginning. This becomes extremely important. At 3 years old, Trejan met his best friend, who would become the influence of his life. From the time they met, Trejan Bridges and Marcus Stiggers were inseparable. His dad said, quote, "They weren't blood brothers, but they instantly were like brothers. At such an early age, they didn't understand what they were really doing and the bond that they were already building. But us adults knew that. As young as they were, the dreams and the closeness that they shared was just incredible." Eventually, both of them began to play football, and at 9 and 10 years old, they talked about their future. According to his friend's dad, they were a dynamic duo and that they are almost unstoppable in the youth leagues. In November of 2011, tragedy would strike. A few days after they played in the championship football game, his friend would score a pair of touchdowns in that game, but he woke up in the middle of that night at his grandma's house and had trouble catching his breath. His grandmother ended up performing CTR, and they did call the paramedics, but nothing could be done. At only 10 years old, his best friend Tank was dead. It was extremely difficult for the family, and it was tough to watch for Trejan, even though he was becoming a young star. His friend's dad said, quote, "It's extremely hard for me to watch Trejan play. I love football, and that's my heart, but to see him play, and any of the other kids I coached play, is everything to me. But it's really hard to do this because Trejan was just like Tank, and when he plays, I see Tank." At only 16 years old at Hebron High School in Carrollton, Texas, Trejan had now blown up physically and was compared to a young Dez Bryant for how good he was in his ability to moss defenders. Because of his ability, he began to field offers from big-time programs. Schools such as Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Oregon, Baylor, and Tennessee all came to watch him, and pretty much every program in the nation was watching Bridges. As a sophomore, he caught 55 passes for 900 yards and 11 touchdowns and was named a second-team All-District wide receiver. At the time, he was the third-ranked receiver in the state of Texas and the 63rd overall player in the nation. As he entered his junior year of high school, he had already collected over 20 offers, and he attended the same school that Jamal Adams went to. As I said earlier, big-time programs began to come calling, and he eventually committed to Oklahoma. He said, quote, "I just felt, after building the strong relationship I have with them, and with multiple coaches I've had great talks with, I just love the environment out there, and I'm going to Oklahoma. I know that deep down, truly they care about me and really want me, and I respect that. It's a great scene out there, and I love the campus, the football facility, and the stadium, and just everything about OU and what it has to provide for me." Bridges chose Oklahoma over Baylor, Ole Miss, Oregon, Tennessee, and A&M, but this did not stop schools from going after him. I mean, he did have 2 more years to get better and play high school, but it was pretty clear to most of their schools that he was committed to Oklahoma, and they did eventually back off. As I said, all of this happened before his junior season, and this would honestly hurt his recruiting profile. At one point, he was considered a 5-star, but typically when a player commits early, the scouts stop worrying about them, and they usually start to fall down the ranking. This is common in pretty much every single sport, so that is why he went from a 5 to a 4-star player. In 3 years as a starting receiver at Hebron High School, he accounted for 2,500 receiving yards and 35 touchdowns. He was also a threat on the ground, as he ran for nearly 500 yards and 7 scores as a senior. Lincoln Riley was very pumped to have him in the program. He said, quote, "He's got a very, very unique skill set, and that's a lot of fun to think about all the possibilities with him." In the same class, he joined 5-star receivers Theo Weiss and Jaden Hazelwood, and there was tremendous hype for this trio. According to 24/7 Sports, Bridges was a 4-star recruit, the number 11 wide receiver, and the 66th best player in the class of 2019. Now, let's see if he would deliver. Going into the 2019 season for Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts was the quarterback. The wide receiver room included CeeDee Lamb, Charleston Rambo, Lee Morris, and Nick Baskin. Lamb and Rambo were the two main guys, so this meant there'd be an opportunity for Hazelwood, Weiss, and Bridges to see the field. So, how did he do as a freshman? Well, he was pretty underwhelming. He played in his first game against South Dakota, where he caught 3 passes for 43 yards and a touchdown, and then also made a play against UCLA. He'd catch 2 passes against Kansas, and then he'd catch a touchdown in a 42-41 win over Iowa State. So far in 2019, he had caught 7 passes for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not stats that'll fly off the page, but he at least had 2 scores in his 7 attempts, so he was efficient and did something when the ball came his way. Oklahoma would end up getting to the Big 12 championship, where they would play against Baylor, and they would beat them in overtime. Over the last 8 games, though, Bridges only had 1 catch, and now horrible news would happen for him. Bridges would get suspended after failing a drug test, and the penalty would end up lasting a year. Both Ronnie Perkins and Ramondre Stevenson would also get in trouble and be suspended, but they returned rather quickly. Bridges would have to wait a long time, and eventually in 2020, it got the best of him, and he took to Twitter. He said, quote, "This whole thing is absolute BS, and I'm tired of it. Everything. I've missed more than half of the season. This is pathetic. I've taken 10 plus tests in the last 2 to 3 months, and they have all been negative. Honestly, through my research, I cannot figure out why the suspension lasted so long, and if it was as simple as a failed drug test and he continued to show good behavior, I'm not sure why he didn't play. There is something definitely that went on behind the scenes though, and he would finally get to play in their bowl game against Florida. The suspension lasted forever, and Bridges had this to say, quote, "It was a long, stressful type of situation. It was an obstacle. I've had multiple obstacles that I've had to face. It was a long learning experience, and I learned a lot through just watching and helping my team. Again, it was like I had to take what I learned and take the negative and turn it into a positive." There was a lot of negative, and the only positive was he got to appear in their game against Florida. He caught 2 passes for 19 yards, and little did anyone know this would be the end of his Oklahoma career. Some of you may or may not remember, but last April I made a video about this entire situation. On April 15th, both Trejan Bridges and freshman running back Seth McGowan were identified as suspects in an alleged robbery at the Crimson Park Apartments in Norman. Apparently, Bridges tried to buy marijuana from the supposed victim, and after he was denied, Bridges, McGowan, and an unidentified third party allegedly went to the guy's apartment and threatened to take his life. The third man also stole a backpack, and for some reason, Bridges and them thought they wouldn't get caught. They were caught, they were arrested, and they were immediately suspended from the football team. Police issued felony arrest warrants for them, and right away, Riley said they were done. Bridges was eventually charged on counts of robbery, conspiracy, and aiding and abetting with a dangerous weapon with his teammate Seth McGowan. On May 20th, he appeared in Cleveland's court and posted a $70,000 bond. As I did research, I could not find a whole lot more information about all this, and there's definitely a court case or something in the future that we're gonna have to watch out for. When I took a look at his social media, he has not posted since April on either Instagram or Twitter, so likely he is taking time to himself, figuring everything out, staying silent, and hopefully getting stuff back on the right track. I hate some of these videos because they're so negative, but there are a lot of players or people who are watching this that can likely learn from his mistake, and we can turn a negative situation into a positive situation. I really do hope the best for Trejan Bridges, as he was a great player in high school, someone who showed flash at Oklahoma, and as long as he didn't do anything too severe, I think he deserves one more chance, whether it's at the JUCO level or once again in college football. We will have to wait for the details though, and if it is truly bad, then he will have to pay for his crime. What do you guys think though? If you're an Oklahoma fan, let me know your opinion on this whole situation. What do you think is in store for the future of Trejan Bridges? And in general, what topic or player could I take a look at in my next What Happened To video? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section, smash that like button for the algorithm, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.
Thank you.